There's a strange moment many people experience at least once. Something good happens in your life. Maybe you get promoted. Maybe you finish a project you've worked on for months. Maybe you finally reach a goal you've been chasing. So naturally, you tell your friends. Most of them respond the way you expect. Congratulations. That's amazing. I'm really happy for you. But sometimes, something feels slightly off. The smile looks a little forced. The excitement fades quickly. The conversation suddenly changes. Nothing negative was said. And yet your mind quietly asks a question. Was that support or something else? Psychologists have studied moments like this for decades because relationships are rarely as simple as we imagine. Friend or enemy. In reality, many relationships exist somewhere in between. People can care about you and compete with you at the same time. They can support you and still feel threatened by your progress. They can want you to succeed, but only up to a certain point. To understand why this happens, we need to look at one of the most powerful forces in human psychology: social comparison. In 1954, psychologist Leon Festinger introduced social comparison theory. His idea was simple: humans understand themselves by comparing their lives to the people around them. But here's the important detail: we rarely compare ourselves to strangers. We compare ourselves to people who are similar to us: friends, co workers, classmates, people who started from a similar place, because those comparisons feel meaningful. You rarely feel threatened by a billionaire you'll never meet. But when a close friend achieves something you secretly want, the reaction is very different. Your brain automatically evaluates something: your own position. Am I ahead? Behind? Falling behind? This comparison happens quickly, and often outside conscious awareness, which creates a strange emotional mixture. Part of someone may genuinely feel happy for you, but another part might quietly ask a more uncomfortable question: why not me? Psychologists call this the envy paradox. Envy rarely appears when the gap between two people is huge. It appears when the gap is small, when two people start from similar places, when their paths look almost identical, and then suddenly, one person moves ahead. Friends often share similar environments, the same schools, the same career paths, the same social circles, which makes them the most natural comparison targets. And when comparison becomes intense, the brain tries to protect something important: self image. If a friend's success makes someone feel like they're falling behind, the mind looks for ways to reduce that discomfort. Sometimes it motivates growth, but sometimes it takes a different route. It quietly minimizes the other person's success. You may have heard comments like these before. Anyone could have done that. They just got lucky. It's not really that impressive. These comments often sound casual, but psychologically they serve a purpose. They protect the speaker's sense of competence. Because success inside your social circle creates pressure. It forces the brain to ask difficult questions. Am I doing enough? Am I capable enough? Am I moving forward fast enough? Instead of confronting those questions directly, the mind sometimes adjusts the story, not consciously, but automatically. And this is why success can sometimes reveal hidden tension inside friendships. But competition is only part of the story. There is another psychological mechanism that makes these situations even harder to notice. It's called betrayal blindness. The human brain has a surprising tendency. It often ignores warning signs when the relationship feels important, because acknowledging betrayal has a cost. If someone close to you is acting against your interests, recognizing the truth threatens the stability of the relationship. And relationships are psychologically valuable. They provide belonging, support, identity. So sometimes the brain chooses the easier option. It filters the signals: a dismissive comment, a subtle joke at your expense, a moment when support was expected, but never appeared. Individually, these moments seem harmless. Maybe you misunderstood. Maybe they didn't mean it that way. Maybe it's not a big deal. But over time, patterns begin to form. And slowly, the line between friend and rival begins to blur. That shift often begins with something subtle: balance. In many friendships, people unconsciously maintain a quiet sense of equality. Not spoken agreement, just a shared feeling. We're doing roughly the same in life. We understand each other. We're moving forward together. This balance creates comfort. But when one person's life starts moving faster than the others, that balance changes. Maybe one friend becomes more successful. Maybe they gain recognition. Maybe their confidence grows. At first, nothing seems different. You still talk. You still laugh. The friendship still exists. But psychologically, something has changed. Because comparison is now harder to ignore. Every achievement becomes new information. Every compliment becomes a reminder. Every visible success becomes another comparison point. And the brain reacts, sometimes positively. A secure friend feels proud. They celebrate your growth. They feel inspired by it. But when comparison threatens someone's identity, the reaction can look different. Instead of open hostility, it appears quietly. Less enthusiasm, subtle distance, small comments disguised as jokes. Psychologists have a word for these relationships: frenemies, part friend, part rival. What makes frenemies exhausting is not conflict, it's uncertainty. With an enemy, things are clear. You know where you stand. But with a frenemy, the signals constantly change. Support one day, competition the next, warm conversation followed by subtle undermining. Your brain begins analyzing everything: tone, timing, facial expressions. Did they mean something by that? Research shows something surprising. Relationships filled with mixed signals can be more stressful than dealing with a clear enemy, because uncertainty consumes mental energy. The brain prefers clear categories: friend or threat. But frenemies exist in the uncomfortable space between. And modern life has made this dynamic even stronger. Because today, comparison never stops. Social media constantly broadcasts success, promotions, trips, achievements, opportunities. And when those updates come from people you personally know, the psychological impact becomes stronger because the comparison is no longer abstract. You know their starting point, you know their story. Your brain automatically measures the distance between your paths. Over time, this environment quietly amplifies competition inside relationships, not because people consciously choose it, but because the human mind is wired to track status within social groups. However, psychology also reveals one reliable signal of genuine friendship. It appears during a very specific moment. When something good happens to you, a truly supportive friend reacts differently. They don't shrink your success, they expand it. Your progress excites them, they ask questions, they show curiosity, they celebrate with real enthusiasm, because their identity is not threatened by your growth. It's secure enough to welcome it. In contrast, relationships driven by comparison often react differently. The excitement fades quickly, the attention shifts, or the conversation subtly moves back to them. These reactions are rarely intentional. They're defensive, ways the brain restores emotional balance. So, what should we do with this? First, remember this: not every uncomfortable reaction means someone is secretly against you. Human emotions are complicated. People can care about you and still struggle with comparison. That doesn't automatically make them an enemy. What matters most is the pattern. Watch how people react over time. When you struggle, when you succeed, when your life moves forward. A real friend usually does something simple. They don't compete with your happiness. They stand on the same side as you. The second thing to remember is this: you cannot control how others react to your growth. You cannot stop people from comparing, but you can choose who stays close to you. And the people who genuinely want to see you succeed usually reveal themselves over time. They're there when things are hard, and they're still there when you start moving ahead. Once you begin recognizing these patterns, relationships become much easier to understand. You start seeing who truly supports your growth, and who was only comfortable when you stayed the same. If you enjoy videos that break down everyday human psychology like this, make sure to subscribe, because understanding how people think often changes how we see the world around us. And sometimes, it also helps us understand ourselves.